Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Deliberately Intentional with me, Remi Fagbon. Last week, we talked about friendships and why we need them. This week, I want to bring you guys into the fuller picture as to why your friendships are so important to your life and why they should be that important to your life. I'm going to give you guys a story. Or maybe before I get into the story, I'll give you guys a little bit of a preview as to what the story is going to be about. See, when I talk about friendships, most of my friendships have helped me. I'm not going to make it sound like there weren't some that were detrimental, they wanted to be detrimental. I have mentioned I got scammed once, right? So yes, I have been scammed, meaning the person cleaned out my account. So it's not like I've not had some bad experiences. I have. I'm going to tell that full story another day. But I've had so many good experiences with friends. I've learned so many things that have helped me in my life that I can't let one bad experience take away from the many good experiences that I've had. But I'm going to tell you about somebody else's experience, and then maybe that will give you a little bit of context. Mary is going to be about Mary and John. I gave them the simplest names I could. Mary was 25 when she married John, and John was 28. They met in church. They had been friends for a very, very long time. She was on the choir. He was an altar boy. They had this really wholesome, and I mean wholesome relationship. There was nothing sexual. It was as cookie cutter as it could be. They maintained this friendship throughout high school. Then he left to go and do his undergrad in the UK, but she stayed in Nigeria. Remember, there's a 3-year gap between them. So he was, of course, ahead of her. She stayed in Nigeria and she continued her education there and graduated. She was a very, very smart girl. They were both exceptionally smart. But you see, where Mary was continuing at home and did really well, she continued the conversations with John, not noticing that there was anything changing. But on John's side, John, for the first time in his life, being in the UK, not having very many friends, he struggled. And where his grades used to be stellar and on points, he was now finding himself on probation. Of course, he was going to one of the top universities, and I don't think he was as accustomed to the maybe the coursework and what have you, but he struggled. Anyway, fast forward a few years, he struggled. He stayed in that struggle, did not share it with anybody. First year, he was on probation. Second year, they kind of expelled him. He dropped out of school. He could not tell. He was too embarrassed to tell anybody. So he resorted to getting odd jobs and figuring things out. He was exceptionally smart, but couldn't quite navigate just that transition to the UK. And at the end of the day, he struggled. He took on a few odd jobs. And slowly, the dream of his engineering dream faded from his memory. He became very depressed. And the only time he was excited about anything or about life was when he got to go back home, where they still saw him as the John of old, so to speak. His friends, he didn't really have that many friends. Remember, he was a church guy. So when he came back to church, he fell right back into the church world. Mary was still excited to see him whenever she saw him. She didn't notice that anything had changed with him. And it continued like that. And he proposed. They got married in the midst of all of this. Mary graduated as valedictorian of her class. And when she moved to the UK, she was already a couple of months pregnant because it took her a year to get her visas. And in between all of that time, he had come back once. One time that he came back home, they had now been married. They did the things that they used to do or they should do. And she got pregnant. So when she finally moved to the UK, she was about 8 months pregnant. And it was when she got to the UK that she realized that things were not what they should have been. He lived with a roommate. He had never mentioned that before. So this is Mary coming, very sheltered Mary, coming into an apartment in the UK. And if you know anything about UK apartments, you know they're really tiny. But she's coming into an apartment where her husband stays with a roommate. They both have their separate rooms, but it was something that she was just not used to because she wasn't even used to being around guys like that. She had two other sisters and it was just them and her parents. So her even being in an apartment, this very sheltered church girl with another guy that was not her husband was foreign to her. Anyway, she's finding out things are not what they were. They argued. When they argued, she's now finding out he has a temper because whenever she would use her smart brain to ask him a question about anything, he would shut it down, turn it into an even bigger fight, and then storm off. Where's she going? She has no friends. So, of course, it was tough for her. When a month and a half passes, she goes into labor. Her mom had been planning to come and stay with her. Her mom comes into the situation. She doesn't even know how to tell her mom what's going on, but her mom comes, sees the situation, gets an Airbnb. Thankfully, they're okay. They're not, extremely rich, but they were okay. Her mom gets an Airbnb. She tells her husband, they get an Airbnb. They're communicating with their in-laws, and they're all a little shocked. They're like, okay, what's going on? What's going on with John? They're trying to reach him. He's refusing to pick up anybody's calls. When she moves in with her mom, John goes missing. Nobody knew what happened to him. Nobody could find him, but she just knew that after a week, they could no longer locate him. He was not picking up his phone. They let it go. Mom continues to stay with her. Mom has a visa that's going to expire in about maybe 6 months. So they maximize, even though her return ticket was supposed to be just 3 months later, she extended it to stay the entire 6 months to get her daughter settled. They finally reached the conclusion that, you know what, it makes more sense since they couldn't find John for her to try to bring the little baby back. She had a baby boy shortly after. Thank God, no complications. Wasn't a C-section, it was a natural birth. So she was good. Her mom left with her young son, and Mary focused on going to school. Because what I did not mention was she'd also gotten a full ride scholarship to do her master's. So it was a once in a lifetime opportunity for her to go to school, finish what she was doing. Even though she couldn't find John and she was a bit heartbroken, she still knew that she had to go forward with what she was doing. But there was no way, she had no friends, she had nobody for her to be able to do that with a newborn. And her mom, at least she had the support back home, but she couldn't do it in the UK. So she sent her baby back home with her mom. Say like a month before her mom left, they now got word that John had died and he had committed suicide. His body had decomposed to a certain amount that they realized that it happened a while ago. Nobody knew who to contact or anything because she wasn't listed on his. Remember, she had only been there for a month and a half. So it took her time to find out this information. He left a letter to both her, his parents, her parents, and to their newborn baby saying, these are the reasons why he couldn't do all the things that he wanted to do, that he had high hopes and he was depressed and what have you. It was at that point that Mary realized that even though they were friends, they weren't the kind of friends that he felt comfortable telling her all the things that were going on with him. Mary's story doesn't end just like that, but I'm going to pause right there and explain a little bit about friendships and the different kinds of friendships. I'm not saying that a friendship could have made a difference to John's story, because I actually do feel that a friendship could have made a difference, because I feel like if he had friends, even just communicating it better with Mary, if not for his pride and his ego, I feel like he could have come out of this realizing that there is a way, there is a path. They could have figured it out together. But because he shouldered everything on himself, and because maybe he didn't see anybody share burdens with other people. He did not have the church community in the UK. Maybe he said he had connected there. In the story, they say that he did connect with other people, found a new church, but he didn't make any solid friendships. Like it or not, that's the story with a lot of us. We don't make a lot of meaningful friendships. I've heard people say, last week's poll that I put out, how easy is it for you to make adult friendships? And almost everyone said that it's hard. Many people said they didn't see the point in it. But if you don't make any new friends, as most of us are used to doing, which we're migrating from country to country, or moving around because of work, we're moving around because of school. If you don't know how to make adult friendships, how are you going to deal with life when it comes your way? How are you going to navigate these moments? How are you going to combat loneliness, depression, your mental health, and so many other things if you don't have any friends around you? If your closest friends are so far away, how do you navigate what's in your forefront, what's right in front of you? Because a lot of us don't realize it, but just having somebody to talk to is so important. For most people, it's the difference between life or death. It's the difference between succeeding and failing at whatever it is you're trying to do. It's the difference between having a little bit more hope and a little bit more strength to push through whatever you're going through versus just giving up and letting it go. Yes, we can pray, and I'm a full fan of prayer. I'm a believer in all of that. But you also need a little bit more. Sometimes that human contact makes a huge difference. That's on one side. But you have to also have an understanding of people. In Mary's defense, because I'm not going to say that Mary did anything wrong here, but of course, after reading the letter, she felt like she could have been a better friend, that she never asked in depth how he was really doing. She didn't know that he had dropped out. She didn't realize that there was a difference in time and that maybe the times he was calling was not exact, that should have been class times. She did never asked about a picture of his graduation or, you know what I mean? Like she just thought about it and she just realized that she didn't ask because everyone now started to ask her questions like, oh, did you meet his friends? Or did you see pictures of his classroom? Or did you see pictures of anything? And she realized that, honesty, she did not. And that's kind of everybody. You know what I mean? A lot of us have these assumptions. Someone has said something, and because that person has said it, you believe it. But I always say that, yes, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, but I'm going to take whatever you say in one hand and I'm going to hold on and wait and see what you do in another. Is that you? Because for most people, it's the other way around. They'll say, oh, the person said it and I believed it. I don't automatically believe anything. I take it in stride and I'm like, okay, we'll see as time goes on whether what you said is true. I'm still going to dig from you, from the people around you, from just, pay attention to things. And sometimes a lot of us do not know how to do that. You've got to have an understanding of people to navigate everything that you're going through in life. You're going to need it to start your relationships. You're going to need it, whether you like it or not, when it gets to parenting. You are going to need friends because your kids can't just play all by themselves. You need people outside of your home to help you with situations, whether you like it or not. And these friendships that you form in these new places are going to keep you grounded as to or aware of what's going on in these various places. So you've met people. How do you make these friends deeper? Well, that comes back to you as a person. You met the person the first time. Let's say it was at the gym. So the first time you smiled. The second time you smiled again. The third time you said hi. And then the fourth time, then the conversation deepens. Fifth, the sixth, the seventh, I know there's no particular order to this. Some people can do it all in one. I can do it all in one sitting. But some people, it takes them time to muster up the courage to go into any situation or even to enter a clique that seems to have already formed. But that's literally what you have to do. You have to have the confidence to say, you know what, this person is in a place that I'm in. We both share this interest. Use that interest to make the world a little wider for the two of you. Use that to talk about yourself and to find out about them. Remember, you have this common space. It could be a podcast studio. It could be the gym. It could be work. It could be your children's school. I've made friends in all of these places. But bringing this story back to Mary, friendships ended up helping her because when her baby went to Nigeria with her mom, the truth was she ended up having to come out of her shell to make friends. She was sad, and her roommates noticed that she was sad, and they kept asking her, like, what's going on? And fortunately, they were persistent enough to break through her very closed mind because she was very closed off. She wasn't the kind of person to be very friendly, but because they noticed something was off with her, they kept asking. And slowly but surely, she opened up. And as she opened up, she then eventually told them about her son, and they helped her heal. They helped her see what the world in the UK was like and how difficult it can be for people that don't make friends. And with their help, she healed. 5 years after John died, she ended up meeting somebody else, getting into a relationship. That person loved her and loved her child. Person wasn't from the church. It was someone that was introduced to her by one of her very good friends that she made in college. Now, that story could have taken another completely different turn. She could have been that angry, bitter, heartbroken individual, and she could have carried that for the rest of her life, literally. Because as far as her mother was concerned, her mother also didn't have the tools to help her. Her mother felt it was the work of the devil. Literally. She was like, we're going to pray over it. You're going to heal. But in the prayer, you're going to heal, there was no actual solution. Her mom didn't really know how to help her daughter. She was like, okay, I'll help you with our grandchild. And it's so beautiful that her in-laws were honestly really good people too, because they also helped too. That was their only grandchild, and it was just it was a reminder of their son. It was a memory. It was a reminder. It was, the little that they could hold on to that was left of their son was their grandson. So they loved him dearly, and they loved her as well. But the truth of the matter is, nobody had any answers for Mary on how she could push through this. The church didn't have any because most of them didn't even want to talk about it. They talked about John like he was a black sheep, which I guess when you're thinking about it, he actually kind of was for their community. Nobody had the understanding to give Mary that would help her be able to see past what was happening. But fortunately, her friends that were outside of the church, they could. And they helped her find love too. Your friendships are incredibly important. As I said before, I've had friends that have helped me. I think it was even, let me even go backwards. I've had my friends who I was with when I met my husband. My friends that were married before me helped me see what marital life could be like, not in a negative way, but in a good way, how to be a better parent to my son. I watched other people parent their kids, and I saw the things that they did that I wanted to do. And I saw the things that they did that were wrong. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But all of these various experiences helped me. I've always had people that were above me, meaning that they were a couple of steps ahead of me in life. They already had kids while I was still single. So I could look at them and say that, hey, this is what you guys are doing. And I could see what I wanted to pick from there. I had a friend whose children did not eat Nigerian food at all. And then I had the other one that ate a lot of Nigerian food and their children could not eat any other food. So guess what I took from that? I took that my son needed to have a balance of both. He needs to be able to eat both types of foods because I'm going to go to Nigeria and he needs to fit in there. He's also going to live in America and he needs to fit in there. But all of these various experiences, and I've got so many, every single one of them has helped me become a better person. They've all been, mind you, this is all outside of education because all of these things that I'm telling you, you can't get it in a classroom. You won't get it from your family most times because the old things that you learn from your family are only going to come based on the kind of things that your family as well is exposed to. So how do you factor all of that in to the various things that you're constantly needing to know about this ever evolving world? It's from your friendships. So if, as a corporate individual, you'll go to conferences to make yourself better, to keep yourself aware of what's going on in any community, whether it's whatever community that you're working in, what are you doing to keep yourself grounded and aware of what's going on in the society, in the friendship world, in the human world of today? Because it's not the same as when I was growing up. It's constantly evolving. If you take anything away from today's episode, it's just how important your friendships are. If you're a good friend, you will be able to spot good people to date. You need to be a good friend to be able to date well. If you date well, you will marry well. You can't avoid some of these steps and think, I'm just going to avoid friends completely and I'm going to jump to marriage. What kind of person are you going to be in the marriage? I've had so many people come to me that they're married, but they're not friends with their spouses. I've seen people talk to me after they've gotten a divorce and they see me, most of the time because they see the relationship I have with my husband and they're like, well, I don't think I ever had that with my spouse. We were never friends. We were never friends is a very, very common thing that I hear from a lot of people. Are you friends with your spouse? Do you think it's important? Because I think that it is very important, but it starts with the kind of friend you are from the very beginning. And that's a journey you start before you ever get married. I'm not saying that all friendships are good, but you do need friendships to evolve. Even when education ends, your education, meaning when the traditional term of education, your bachelor's, your master's, your PhD ends, you do realize that your education is still supposed to continue. Where do you think that other part of your education is going to come from? It comes from your friendships. And that's why you have to be continuous in your pursuit of different kinds of friendship to help your world expand, evolve, and grow. And so that you're also constantly aware of what's going on in your society and around you and in the places that you need to be in the future. It's that important. So it's equally important to your marriage. I want to thank all of you guys for joining me on another amazing episode of Deliberately Intentional. I hope that if you take anything away from today, it's two things. One, that you know how to deepen those friendships that you already have. You should have learned from last week how to make those friendships happen. Your connecting spots, dots, whatever you want to call it, is wherever you find yourself. And yeah, sometimes you got to take yourself out of your comfort zone in order to make that happen. But two, that it doesn't matter where you are in your life, friendships are that important. Your friendships will be what will lead you to your relationship, will lead you to dating first, and then dating will create the relationship, and the relationship is what will turn into a marriage. They're all connected. If you have any problems doing any of this, of course, I'm here to help you, especially when it comes to friendships and relationships, because those are the two things that I am extremely passionate about. One without the other is not a recipe for success. Thank you, Producer Mar, for all your help today. Thank you guys for joining me this week on another episode, and I'll see you next week. Bye.